Do you ever find yourself holding back from being more visible? Or maybe you've been filtering your message so you don't ruffle feathers. And I am sure you have some really good reasons, but what if it's actually fear? Fear is pretty sneaky, and when fear is making your growth decisions, it's often the reason why you stay a best kept secret. I want to welcome you to Growth Fuel Live. I'm Melanie Benson, founder of the Authority Accelerator, Rising Tide Collective, and the Substack Growth Fuel. And I'm also the host of the Top 1% podcast, Amplify Your Success. So if you're listening here on Amplify Your Success, you can catch these conversations with my guests live on my new Substack. So let me give this amazing human a proper introduction. My guest today is not only one of my closest friends, she has spent 30 years proving one thing. There is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing broken. There's nothing out of sync. You are perfect, but you have fear. You're experiencing fear. Rhonda Britten is an Emmy Award-winning life coach, a 4-time best-selling author. She is founder of the Fearless Living Institute, and she helps people break free from hidden fear patterns that keep them stuck through her groundbreaking work on what she calls fear literacy. We're going to be digging into that. Now, the first time I experienced Rhonda, I'm going to paint a picture here for a second. I was a brand new coach. I was kind of, spending a lot of time learning my craft. And I stumbled onto this episode of this extraordinary human being coaching people on TV to break through fears. And I sat there and I started recording all of them and I binged them because I was like, oh my God, she's so amazing. She's so courageous. She is helping her clients break out of these amazing fear patterns. And I eventually met Rhonda. We became friends. She's now one of my closest friends. And I am so honored, Rhonda, to have you here today for my first live on Growth Fuel, because we got to talk about fear. We got to talk about navigating what's coming up for so many of us who have visibility. We're known. We're kind of bumping into some stuff right now as we have uncertain times. So welcome to the conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm so excited to be here. And yeah, changing lives and starting over was an honor, but it also was a really critical difference between coaching, how most people coach versus how I coached on that show. My job on that show is to create a visceral experience, right? And that's really what we're meant to do. We're just never taught how to do that.
Yeah.
So, creating that visceral experience really gives people a different permission to make changes. So many times we get caught in our head, right? We're thinking. And that's why smart people stay stuck longer.
Well, this couldn't fit more perfectly into, the work that I do around being an unignorable leader, because when we are being visible, when we are creating our messaging, when we are putting our work out in the world, it is about like transmitting a visceral feeling state, right? So let's start though. I want to talk a little bit. Let's name the elephant in the room, or kind of name the experience that's around us right now in our current world. There's a lot of uncertainty. Many of us are looking at, okay, so I've been doing this thing for a really long time and it kind of stopped working and I'm freaking out because I got to make money. I got to pay bills. Or there's a deep calling to bring this more true, more aligned work out. I think you and I have talked about this so many times over the years. Like, what has it been, like 16 years now, 17 years? But we've had this conversation over and over again about bringing out the truer, more aligned work, and yet fear crops up. So when somebody finds themselves in this space of uncertainty, things are changing, they don't really have a roadmap for what's next. How can we look at fear, and how can we pay attention to fear and use that fear as part of our guidance system? What is it telling us? I guess let's start with that.
Yeah. Well, the first thing it's telling us is where we should go, right? Because uncertainty is really fear's job. Fear's job is to point out uncertainty. But the challenge is that freedom equals our ability to live in the unknown. So I'm going to say that again. Freedom equals our ability to live in the unknown. So our mastery really shows up when we are in fear. If we're not afraid, then where do we practice our mastery? Where do we become who we are meant to be? So fear is just a function of uh, I'm going to say this: it's more than an emotion. People get caught up in thinking it's emotion, and people get caught up in thinking that there's something wrong with them. People keep thinking that, maybe if I was more motivated, or if I didn't have imposter syndrome, because one of the things today is that marketers and psychologists have labeled all of what I call fear responses as syndromes, right? Oh, you have imposter syndrome. Oh, you have worth issues. Oh, A, B, or C, right? And I'm always like, yeah, no, that's not how that works. Imposter syndrome or worth issues are simply explanations, right? They're just descriptions. They don't really help you understand what's going on. They just describe what's going on. And so the minute you label yourself as, I have imposter syndrome, or there's, I have a worth issue, or I'm, A, B, or C again, whatever it is that you label yourself, procrastination, perfectionism, overwhelm, et cetera, all those I want you to understand are fear responses. Because once you put them in their proper place, then they're not so scary, right? Because what we do, what fear wants us to do, is to create everything as our problem. There's something wrong with us, right? The world is uncertain. I don't know what to do. I need to make some money, but wait, this thing is calling me. And because we're not taking bold action every minute, there must be something wrong with me. Well, I'm going to introduce something quickly. I'm just going to take a side note. I have a tool called Stretch, Risk, and Die. And, most of us get caught up in thinking that we always have to be, dying, right, on the bold side. When in fact, in order to really shift ourselves, sometimes we have to start on the stretch side and just start stepping out in those small ways. And it doesn't even have to be in your business. Most of the time, the bravest things we can do is actually outside of our business, then they impact our business, right? Because they impact us on a cellular level. So freedom equals your ability to live in the unknown. Fear wants to keep you safe. That's its job. And uncertainty doesn't keep you safe, because fear doesn't care if you're happy, doesn't care if you have purpose, doesn't care if you're passionate, doesn't care if you make money, could care less. All it does is want to keep you safe. So when you're buying into uncertainty, when you're actually making that bigger than your dream, you're actually buying in to that there's something wrong with you.
Okay. Wow. First of all, writer downer. I grabbed this quote of freedom is our ability to be in the unknown. So
Right.
powerful. And it's true. And I think, sometimes that's where I always feel like there's a mastery level for many of us. We've had training, we've gone through all the courses, we've done all the things, we've grown our businesses. We're pretty high achievers, but yet fear can be that thing we grapple with. And so, like, really willing to master fear. And I love this idea that we can master fear and like conquer some fears in our personal life and then use that cellular upgrade into our businesses. And I've done it both ways, right? Like I've done things in my business and I'm like, damn, that was good. And then I can translate that out to my personal life. But some of my greatest breakthroughs were doing things I didn't think I could do, that I had fear about accomplishing. Like the time I climbed this crazy high hike in Yosemite that there's straight up like 800 plus stone steps in a waterfall in 100-degree weather. And I'm like, I'm so not doing that. But I did. And it made me feel so courageous and so unstoppable. And so, I love this concept that we can bring it over into our business and apply those same energies. And so let's just go a little bit deeper. You said fear is part of the guidance system. So I just want to unpack this one step deeper. We've got people who say they want more clients. They want to make a greater impact. Yay. Like that's what we want. That's what we're here for. And yet when it comes to being more visible and doing the things that would help them attract those clients, getting on stages, being on podcasts, starting their own podcast, starting a Substack channel, doing lives, whatever the thing is, they pull back. or they filter it and kind of do the version that's the safest, even though it's not the most potent. Or they're like taking the message that they know deep inside of them, this is the thing I'm meant to be talking about, and then they run it through the safety filter and go, okay, yeah, let me just put that version out.
Mm-hmm.
What's actually happening underneath that that's
Well, there's
causing them to be
something.
stuck?
Well, the
Sorry.
first thing is that no, you're fine. The first thing that is that fear is more than an emotion, and I think that we need to understand that because we may not be scared, right? We may not be terrified, right? We may not have those visceral experience of what fear we think fear feels like. So fear is more than an emotion. Fear is an operating system. And the way that our body and brain and our neurobiology works is you're either what I call on the wheel of fear or on the wheel of freedom. There's only two places to be. There's no neutral. You're either living and operating and thinking from the wheel of fear, or you're thinking, feeling, and operating from the wheel of freedom. And so let's say you have this huge opportunity and you're like, I have this thing dying, like you said, I have this thing dying to be birthed inside me and I want to do it, right? And fear's like, yeah, but you know what? You could get hurt. Something bad could happen, right? And what we do is we actually believe the voice of fear than our own true nature. We actually believe what it's saying to us rather than our own inner knowing, right? Before, I know I'm supposed to do this, but then fear comes in. And by the way, fear is an adaptive intelligence. What does that mean? Fear is as smart as you are, as educated as you are, as spiritual as you are, and knowledgeable as you are. So the smarter you get, the smarter it gets. The more spiritual you get, the more spiritual it gets. The more knowledgeable, educated, the more it has too. So it gets trickier and more subtle. So before, maybe when you first started your business, it was very clear, right, what you were afraid of. Oh, I'm afraid to get on stage, right? Or I'm afraid of, I've never had a client before, right? It was completely new, and it's normal to be able to, nervous to step out into the unknown like that, right? Again, we have to remember that freedom equals our ability to live in the unknown. So what we want to do is we actually want to the first thing I ask my clients to do is actually start keeping track of what I call fear responses. Because the things that we think are wrong with us, right? Why am I procrastinating? Why am I people pleasing? Why am I perfectionist? I got to stop these things. All of these things are simply fear responses. So if we can just create that witness consciousness, and instead of attacking ourselves or blaming ourselves or thinking there's something wrong with us, instead, if we can label it as a fear response, then we're putting it in its proper context, right? We're putting it in the proper place. We're no longer making this like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? I want to do this. What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you at all. It's just fear. And so if you can get away from the shame, if you can put the shame away and the addiction to the shame and blaming yourself, because again, most high achievers are so good at blaming themselves because, by the way, we do it for a reason, because if I can blame myself, then I can fix it, right? If I can just blame myself, then I have the power to fix it. But the challenge is that fear is much smarter than you are, much more educated, like I said, much more knowledgeable, et cetera. And so you got to understand how fear works rather than try to fight fear. I don't believe in ever fighting fear. I believe in building a relationship with fear, because fear actually really, really loves you. So first of all, fear isn't a feeling. Fear is an operating system. And so what I've developed, like I said earlier, is wheel of fear and wheel of freedom. And in that wheel of fear, there is something called the core trigger. And the core trigger is literally the fear at your identity level, not intellectual level. I'm talking about visceral, I'm going to die level. And by the way, you don't know what it is because fear doesn't want you to find it. So when you're about to step out on stage or you're about to say yes to something, that core trigger is activated. You don't even know it. Instead, you go into what's wrong with me. Instead, if you can say, okay, wait a minute, Rhonda, I heard this girl Rhonda say something about a core trigger and on the wheel of fear. I'm on my wheel of fear. Okay, great. I know I'm on my wheel of fear. And these are fear responses. This isn't a character flaw. There's not a problem with me. These are just fear responses. When you can take the shame out of it and the blame out of it and just see it as a mechanism, as a system, then it becomes a lot easier to build a relationship with that thing called fear. Because bottom line is, if you're growing, if you're committed to mastery, if you're committed to building your business, if you're committed to anything great, you are going to face fear on a regular basis. So this is what we want to become a master at, is our fear, understanding it, seeing it, and then moving beyond it.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. And I'm just checking in with those of you joining us live, like who's already had a couple ahas. It's like, wow. And it shouldn't surprise me. I always have like big ahas every time I talk to you. But one of the things that it just occurred to me is that we want to welcome fear on some degree because it's
Right.
telling us that we're growing beyond what we've been up to now.
That's right. Fear's
And
not coming to visit you if you're doing the same thing over and over again. Fear
right?
isn't visiting you on the couch eating Doritos watching a movie, right? Fear only is coming when you move into what I call the stretch, risk, or die zones, right? When you're even, and I want you to hear this, you could have a new thought and fear will shut you down. It's not
Mm,
even taking the action. Fear starts at just having a new thought or a new feeling. Just contemplating that will cause fear to come in and go, oh, well, she's crazy now. She's thinking crazy things now. I got to stop this chick. And it will do everything to keep you stuck, small, because it wants to keep you safe.
mm. Yeah, I am certainly no stranger to having a vision because I use human design, so that's one of my tools in my toolbox. I'm a manifester. I see possibilities all the time. And then one of the things that I recognized a few years ago was the pattern of I see the big thing. Oh, look at all the fear that shows up that says, no, you can't do it. No, you won't do it. No, it might fail. Oh no, I can't have another failure. And I think that recognizing great fear showing up.
That's right. Fear
Let
is
me be a friend with this fear.
fear is showing up. It means that I am in my mastery level now.
Yeah.
Because again, fear wouldn't bother with you. When people say to me, I don't have any fear, I'm like, well, that's sad. That's really sad because you're living a very small life, right? And
Mm,
again, most people usually think of physical fear. They don't think of emotional fear. And our neurobiology doesn't know the difference between emotional fear and physical fear. So we all can say, I'm afraid of heights, and we're like, oh my God, me too. But if we say, I'm afraid of being seen, right? I'm afraid of being visible. I'm afraid that I might live my passion. And then what will my friends and family say? Right. Again, we can have these intellectual discussions with ourselves, and that's lovely and wonderful. Yet, fear is just having that intellectual discussion, fear still has a hold on you. It's a lovely first step. But unless you're willing to take action in that direction while you're afraid, while you're shifting from what I call the wheel of fear to the wheel of freedom, because there is that bridge that you've got to go from one to the other. When you're on that bridge, you are moving towards your wheel of freedom, and yet your wheel of fear is trying to push you back. You get to go, oh, fear, I know you love me. I got this though. I'm good. And fear is going to be like, you're going to fail. And you're going to say, I know I might, but that's okay. I'm going to do it anyway. Well, don't come crying to me. Okay, I won't come crying to you. Right. This is the conversations we have to have with fear. We don't fight fear. We don't say, ask it to leave. We don't, say, no, I'm going to prove you wrong. That whole prove you wrong thing is fear 10xing, 100xing. It is tricking you. Don't buy into that.
mhm. Yeah. Want to give a little thank you to Lisa, who's jumping into the comments. Lisa Kennard, I think you say her name. She says, "Love Rhonda's work. She's helped me tremendously."
Thank you,
Yeah,
Lisa.
she has helped me tremendously as well. So, I want to speak to this work that you are coining and founding around fear literacy. Another one of your great fear tools and fear awarenesses. And I think it's really incredibly relevant right now for so many reasons, right? Like we need better tools in our toolbox to navigate what's emerging in this world right now. We also, most of us are coaches, we're mentors, we're leaders, we're guides for people. Maybe even we're just guides for our young children or family members, right? Like we're all leading in some way, shape, or form in our lives every day. And I'm curious, like, what does it mean to become literate with fear?
Oh, I love this question. I am so excited for fear literacy to come into the conversation because that is a term I coined. I can really see how I've been building up to this for the last 30, almost 31 years now. And fear literacy literally is education of fear, right? It's moving from a fear emotion to a fear system. So there's 4 stages to fear literacy. The first one is fear illiterate. Somebody is fear illiterate. What is fear? So who is fear illiterate? The people who blame themselves, who believe they have character flaws, they think there's a problem with them. They literally point to themselves. They don't see fear, they only blame themselves. right? Or their circumstances or their trauma or whatever it is. Again, those experiences might be real. I'm not dismissing those, yet continuously using those experiences, using those past as a reason for your current situation, right? So fear illiterate is it's me, it's my past. There's something wrong with me in my past, right? I can't, and I lived that way for, by the way, for decades. I remember thinking to myself, when one of my first mentors was like, "You're going to be a better coach than me," because there was like two coaches in the world when I became a coach. And, he was one of the very first coaches in the world. And he would say, "You're going to be a better coach than me." And I'd be like, "No, let's see. No one's going to listen to me. I had 3 DUIs, 3 suicide attempts. I was an alcoholic. I don't think I'm a good role model." Because back then I believed my past influenced my present. I believed that I couldn't get past it. So fear illiterate, I was completely fear illiterate. Fear literate, the second stage is you starting to understand, oh, this isn't me, this is fear. You're starting to see how fear operates. And that is, of course, using my tools, if you'd like, the Wheel of Fear and Wheel of Freedom. And then you move into fear fluent. What does that mean? You're starting to work with fear. You and fear are buddies. You can start moving from fear to freedom. You can actually see the areas of your life you're in fear and areas of your life where you're in freedom. And you can start going, okay, I can see how this operates. And you can move in real time. And this is really critical, not after, not in reflection, but in real time, moving from like when you're about to get on that stage and nervous or freaking out, or somebody calls you and says, "I'm thinking about doing S," and you're like, "I want to do it," but you're afraid. In that moment, you're able, because of your understanding how fear works, you're able to say yes, you're able to move forward, you're able to do that. So you're living in a state from fear to freedom much more fluently. And then the fourth stage is fluent freedom. And that means you're living on your wheel of freedom more than anything else. And when you're living in your wheel of freedom, you're living in what I call the essential nature of who you are. You're living in that essence of who you are, and you're allowing that to come forth on a daily basis, not randomly, but really everywhere with everyone at any time in any situation. Because that's, I think, what we're all calling for, right? We all want to live our soul's desire. We all want to live that place within us that we know we're meant to be, and we experience it. We experience it randomly. Well, when you're in fluent freedom, you're not experiencing it randomly. You're making a conscious choice and you're living in the flow of life on your wheel of freedom. So I'm starting to take people through the stages of fear literacy. And I'm just so excited. I just taught my first fear literacy class for the public. And they went gaga, googa, googa, gaga. And they basically said it explained everything so succinctly, so clearly, that they have been fighting or discussing or trying to figure out for decades. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to be confusing to yourself, right? You don't have to be confusing to yourself, because once you move it from fear illiterate to fear literate, what do you get? You get more compassion, you get more empathy, you get more caring, you get more sovereignty, you get more personal power. So that's moving you from the victim stage of fear illiterate, there's something wrong with me, into a more powerful place. And that's what the rest of my life, my legacy work is about: fear literacy, bringing it into the world, bringing it into businesses, bringing it into organizations, bringing it into education facilities, bringing it to the masses so that people do not have to live out of their fear of being afraid.
Yeah. Wow. I love your work so much. I
Thank you.
love the energy that you bring to this conversation about fear literacy. That's when you know you're really plugged in to your soul's work, right? It's like the conviction level, the depth of like what you've owned here it's so powerful, Rhonda.
Well,
I love it.
emotional intelligence helps us understand emotions, right? Like, explain
Mhm.
emotions. We have that. But fear literacy is going to help you understand human behavior and understand it in the
Mhm.
context of how fear works. So I'm creating a new category in the world. And I'm excited that you're excited and I'm excited. And I can't wait to bring it to everybody who wants to get free.
Yeah. Well, and I also like I think there's the self-awareness, like where am I stuck? Where am I in my fear
Mhm,
journey, right? And my
mhm.
relationship to it. But then when we mentor, lead, guide other people, when we start to have our own self-awareness, we're better mentors, coaches, guides for the people we serve, because I can't even tell you how many times I had clients stuck in fear in the early days and I didn't recognize what was really happening. So you're solving the wrong problem.
Oh, you're singing my song, girlfriend. You're singing my song. And that is one of my fanaticisms, is because coaches, I teach coaching intensives once a month to any coach, any therapist, any leader out there, conscious entrepreneur. I teach these coach intensives. And people that are new to my work come in. I just had somebody say, just in my last coach intensive, they say, well, Rhonda, what do I do with my client? They're self-sabotaging. They're not self-sabotaging. They're not consciously saying, I am now sabotaging my career, right? But we label our clients as resistant, right? As self-sabotaging. We label them as difficult. And what we're saying in that moment is we're buying into their wheel of fear. We're actually labeling them and making their wheel of fear true. So I said to that woman, we never say our clients are self-sabotaging. We don't even have that thought that they're self-sabotaging. That's not even a thought we have. We don't even think that our client is resistant. Now, again, they're going to use that phrase. I understand that. Yet, what we want to do is we want to be talking to that wheel of freedom, right? We want to be talking and educating and supporting them and coaching them as if they are already living in freedom, right? So the minute you buy into that they're resistant, you're actually buying in to the fear. You're actually buying in and believing that they're consciously doing it. And this is where we must become more awake as leaders. The minute we label somebody as lazy or resistant, we're actually saying, well, yep, that's who you are. That's who you are. That's not who they are. That is how fear is showing up. So we don't want to add more to that. We don't want to buy into that. Instead, as I said to that woman who was in my class, I said, right? No self-sabotage. The client is just afraid. And if you can speak to the fear, if you can help them understand the fear, if you can help them navigate the fear, then their true nature will show up. So I'm fanatical about the language that we use. I'm fanatical about understanding how to see a client that's living in fear rather than labeling them or buying into their label. Like I had another person on my class say imposter syndrome. Well, Rhonda, what do I do? I have imposter syndrome. I'm like, that's nice, but no, you don't. No, you don't. Okay. That's a fear response. So labeling yourself sabotage, resistant, imposter syndrome, procrastinator, all those are just simply fear responses. And if we can eliminate the label that we place on ourselves, that we believe there's something wrong with us, and start seeing it as a fear response, like I said earlier, that witness consciousness, separating ourselves from it and going, oh, fear is upon me now. That is not who I am. That is our job as coaches, leaders. We're meant to talk to the person that is actually within that client of ours who is petrified, which, by the way, for good reason, right? For good reason, they're petrified. And you, as the coach leader, better have fear literacy in order to support them to move out of that place. Because again, they're coming to you. So fear literacy is really critical when we want to be leaders, because we need to talk to the best of our people, right? And I don't mean that as a cliche, because we've heard that, right? We've heard that, like, speak to the best of them. No, I literally mean to the best of them, not as a technique, as reality. And so my philosophy, I teach 8 coaching skills, and my first coaching skill is seeing people's innocence. And when you call them resistant, when you call them imposter syndrome, when you label all these things, you're not seeing their innocence. You're actually buying into fear illiteracy and making yourself and your client fear illiterate.
Mic drop. I would mic drop my mic, but then it would be too hard to get it back, right? Like, wow. Michaela's here. Michaela Geffenstone from Rising Tide Collective. Glad you're joining us. But she's like, loving this behavior approach. Yes, yes, yes. I knew this would be fire today. Okay, so if somebody's listening in, or they know somebody who's in this space, and they're in fear, they're holding back, they're not stepping into their freedom fluency. Sorry,
Yeah,
got that last stage right.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
What's one courageous shift they could take right now to move from one of those earlier stages of fear into freedom fluency?
I'm going to step back and say that really one of the things to start paying attention to is your fear responses. Because people think, and say, oh, what are the things that you want to change about yourself, right? You either have the client who goes, everything, Or you say, oh, I just wish I could quit procrastinating, right?
Mm.
The minute we self-identify, again, wheel of fear has us. So just practicing, one of the easiest things to do, easiest things to start creating space for yourself is literally start saying, oh, I'm procrastinating. Wait a minute. Nope, nope, no, heard that Rhonda and that Melanie chick talk about this. That no, I'm not doing that. What I am doing is that's a fear response because there is a place that I'm meant to grow. There's a place that I am being called to, and procrastination is showing up in order to stop me. Oh, there's nothing wrong with me. That's just something that's happening to me, right? Through me, i.e., and for me, as we know from a spiritual perspective. So the easiest thing to do is just starting to claim your fear responses. Now, I know for some of us who are, positive thinker junkies are like, well, then I'm focused on the negative. No, you're focused on finding out where fear is tripping you up so that you can make a different choice, right? So if you hear yourself say, oh, I've got imposter syndrome, you go, I heard that Rhonda and Melanie talk. That's not imposter syndrome. That's just fear trying to stop me. Oh, that's just fear trying to stop me. What is it that fear is trying to stop me from? Well, it's trying to keep me safe. Oh, it still thinks I'm 12, right? It still thinks I'm 6 because your wheel of fear is formed by the time you're 7. And it's part of our remember, our neurobiology is wired for fear. It is wired for fear. So we have to re-educate and we have to rewire ourselves. And part of that is identifying that fear response. And then, of course, the other thing is, go on over to my Substack, because every week I give a tool or I give a skill or I give something, a guide for you to take action. Because in order for you to move from the wheel of fear to the wheel of freedom, there's a little silly word that we all repeat and all know, but sometimes in these moments don't do, which is practice, right? Which is practice the skill, practice the tool, practice the awareness. So I invite you to start paying attention to your fear responses and then ask yourself, what is fear trying to keep me safe from? What is fear driving? What is fear trying to keep me safe from? Oh, it's trying to keep me safe from embarrassment. It's trying to keep me safe from humiliation. And those are all false. Those are all false things. So you get to decide if you want to buy into the illusion of fear, i.e., whispering in your ear, oh, it's going to be rejection. Okay, bring it on. Let's do it. Oh, I'm going to fail again. What? Who cares? Right? Like, that's awesome. This is where mastery is. You're either moving into wanting to become a master at your life, or you're wanting to stay safe, right? And if you're wanting to stay safe, you're living on your wheel of fear. And again, I'm not talking about safety, i.e., of course, I want you to be safe in the world, right? But I'm talking about those emotional risks that you are dying to take, right? Whoever's listening to us right now, and it applies to them, you're dying to take an emotional risk. You must remember that the body and brain don't know the difference between physical risks and emotional. You must not get them confused. Call them fear responses and then say, there's nothing wrong with me. It's just fear. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with me. It's just fear. So what would I do if I was living in freedom? What would I do if I was being authentic to myself? What would I be doing right now if I had the courage and the fortitude to actually take action on my soul's behalf?
Yeah.
Then do it. Scared.
Do it scared. Do it scared, and know that when you are resourced and you're supported, maybe it's a coaching community or it's working with a coach, it's whatever form that is. When you take those risk steps, you have support systems in place, you have tools in place, you have
That's right.
guidance to navigate the version of you you're becoming, the whatever the situation is. Like, we all know the saying, great lives are not happening inside of safety nets, right? Like, we're not making the impact we're here to make inside of our safety zone.
That's
And
right.
I would never be where I am today, 26 years into this business, if I had done everything in the safety zone. I did nothing in the safety zone. I'm in fear a lot of the time, but I've learned how to, as you call it, be in a different fluency with that fear. Sometimes not necessarily in freedom fluency, but now I'm going to be stretching into that more and more. Thank you, Rhonda. I want to encourage everybody, if you're tuning in here live with us on the Growth Fuel Substack, subscribe to Rhonda. Check out what she's doing, get her tools. If we're new friends, I'd love to have you subscribe and stay connected with me. And Rhonda, there's some questions in the chat here about,
Yeah,
oh
of
my
course.
God, how do I go deeper with these coaching intensives? So I know you have an entire arsenal of amazing fearless living, fear, fluency tools inside
Mhm.
your wheelhouse, what would be the best place to take if they want to go direct into deeper tools with you?
Go to fearlessliving.org, go to fearlessliving.org, jump in and get my freebie, which is gonna be changing because, I'm writing a fear literacy guide as we speak, and so
Nice.
hopefully that will be happening in the next week or 2, but right now, just go get whatever I've got on there. I think it's Fear to Freedom, and just get on my email list, and then you'll get emails about the coach intensive. So the coach intensives,
Nice.
just are once a month, and I go deep, and we, really help your coaching, uh, the tools, the skills, the things that you need in order to feel masterful with your clients and or your team or your family.
Yeah, wherever you're and maybe even just with yourself, right? It's like
I think
fear's
people
all around us.
yeah, I mean, I last month I did forgiveness, like how do you work with forgiveness with a client?
Mm.
And, in January, I did visceral work, like how do you create a visceral experience for your clients? And so every month is different. I'm giving you tools and skills and awareness that I've honed after over 31 years, over 50,000 coaching conversations. So I'm here to support coaches to become their greatest versions of themselves, right? So yeah, just get on my list and you will get the emails. They're the third week of the month. So I look forward to you joining me.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you. And, as you're listening in live with us, if you've had an aha, we'd love to have you drop it in the chat. I'll read them out for you in a second. And I want to invite you, if this conversation has stirred something in you, please subscribe here on Growth Fuel, but more importantly, share this amazing conversation, restack it on Substack. If you're listening later on Amplify Your Success, please hit the subscribe button where you enjoy listening, and then share this episode with your friends. I really believe in everything that Rhonda does. I think we need more tools to navigate and properly name what fear, as we've learned today, is
Yeah.
for us, but also let's give the world better tools to not just get stuck in fear, but to navigate it, to rise above it, and to support others when fear is arising for them. So please give Rhonda some love today. Give her a shout out and make sure that she knows how much you enjoyed today's session. And Rhonda, do you have any last thoughts before we wrap up today?
I do. So everybody, I know I'm going to be corny for a minute, but if you're a corny person like me and a woo-woo person, I can go there. And if you're able to put your hand on your heart, just put your hand on your heart, put your hand on your heart and say the following. Oh, there is nothing wrong with me. There is nothing wrong with me. There is nothing wrong with me. It is just fear. And let that seep into every cell of your body, every bone in your being, and just know that is true. Release that shame and that blame and anything that's been holding you back for you blaming yourself, you staying in victim mentality, you getting caught in your own past, believing it is who you are. Allow there is nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. It is just fear to really give yourself just a little breath, a little breathing space so that you can come up and say yes, yes, and more yes, yes, and more yes, yes, and more yes. And so it is.
I love that. And I love that we're ending with yes and more yes. You say yes. Say yes to that pull, that thing that's sparking in you, that growth that's wanting to emerge, that thing that's calling you, and work the process. Like Rhonda's got amazing tools for you. So little shout out from Tammy, 2 pages of notes, pure gold. Such an inspiring conversation from Tammy. Or Michaela said, inspiring conversation. Mindy, thank you, Rhonda. Thanks for being a great teacher these last 20 years. I've been following you. Aw,
Thank you,
so much
Mindy.
love.
So
Thank you
beautiful
all
to
for
see.
joining us live. I loved it. We'll be back again next Thursday, almost the same time, with another Growth Fuel episode. I have such an amazing lineup for the kickoff series. Rhonda, thank you for being my first. Oh my God, I feel so honored.
Oh, I didn't know I was your first, and I am so
Yes,
honored
well,
to
your
be here.
first.
So, yes, and I'm just going to know that we're setting the stage for a lot of freedom and a lot of fearlessness. So I'm knowing that to be
Absolutely.
true. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, my friends, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you again next week. And be sure to give Rhonda's conversation a lot of love. Bye, everybody.